Amena dina suntakke, kavoya saya dingoma, amina dara mulitsa, lady limora mona la kunge.
Hello, SOFIA RIBEIRO.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have the honor to ask you a few questions today. So, as you know, I'm not a journalist at all. I'm a singer asking questions to another singer, having another career and seeing life from another view and another sphere. And so I'm gonna ask you a few questions, some questions for my PhD, for my research. And so feel free to really answer with your heart and well, to answer exactly the way you want.
Perfect.
So Sophia, can you introduce yourself in a few words?
Sure. So I'm SOFIA RIBEIRO. I'm a singer. I'm an improviser, or maybe like vocal improviser. I also write my own music. So I guess I'm kind of a composer in a way, and also teacher and facilitator, and yeah, I'm Portuguese. I love the sun, the ocean, good food, and yeah, I guess that's also part of my personality as a musician too. Yeah, and more? You want me to say more?
No, that's enough. If you think it's enough, it's enough.
Yeah.
Do you think you belong to a certain style of jazz?
Well, that's interesting because although jazz has been the style that I was focusing more for a long time, for many years I was obsessed with jazz. Nowadays, I sometimes don't even call myself a jazz singer because it just has been opening up so much what I've been doing. I mean, jazz is definitely there. And if I choose one style, it's going to be jazz, that's for sure. But I guess it's just a mix of jazz with my own roots in music, which is mostly Portuguese and Brazilian music. And I don't know, I could say modern jazz, but that probably doesn't sound so accurate. So it's my own jazz, I guess. Yeah, I would say.
Would you like to describe your musical style a little bit more?
Sure. I think it's jazz is there mostly because of the harmonic complexity, like the harmonic progressions. I would say that I just took them mostly from jazz. And then the rhythmical part of my music comes from many places, but a lot from Brazil. Like the Brazilian rhythms are very present in my music because I listen so much to Brazilian music, and I think it's probably my favorite music in the world. If I need to choose one country, it's gonna be Brazil. And then, of course, there's Portugal, which is my country, and it's mostly on my way of singing and the kind of ornamentations that I do. So yeah, maybe harmony from jazz, and then if I put it in a very simple black and white kind of way, harmony from jazz and rhythms from Brazil, and the vocal technique with a lot of influences from Portuguese music. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful mix.
I guess it's a very natural mix.
Yeah.
It was not like, oh, I'm gonna...
No, of course.
Right? So it was very not conceptual at all, just naturally coming out.
How have you learned music?
I think it just started when I was very young, by listening to music, because my father had a lot of records. So I remember that I was very curious about listening to the music that he had there available. But then really getting to learn music was mostly from a conservatory, like a school of music where I got in when I was, I think, 12. I learned the piano, classical piano, then I learned guitar, I learned musical ear training and theory also. And I also got into a choir like a children's choir, and that opened up many doors. I started singing with a lot of people, and I realized how fun that can be. And then later then like just studying in a more methodic, disciplined way in music schools, and then really getting into university and all that.
Can you explain it?
Sure. So when I was 18, so after like this musical classical music training with piano, guitar, and voice for all these years, and the choir, when I was 18, I got into a jazz school because I wanted to learn singing not in a classical way. Just felt that it was not so natural for my voice to sing in a classical way. And so I started learning jazz standards and just how to improvise over chord progressions. But then, I kept just studying there. I didn't know I wanted to do music. So I got into university, but in another university. No music in the beginning. I thought music was just a hobby for me. So I got into this course which is called occupational therapy. And I studied that for 4 years. I was supposed to become a therapist.
Wow.
Which did not happen. And then when I finished that, I still loved music, and I finally realized that actually I wanted to do music in my life. Okay, no more hobby. I just really want to focus completely on music. And so I got in a superior conservatorium. I don't know exactly how you say it in English, but it's actually a university where I started like singing classical in a more disciplined way in a university. So it was more serious then. 2 years of that, and I said definitely it's not classical. But it was the only option. So when the jazz degree opened up in the school where I was studying in the university, I immediately changed to jazz. But then I was already, I don't know, 24 maybe? And that's it. Okay, finally, this is it. This is what I want. And it was just study jazz. Then I did a couple of exchange programs in Barcelona and in Boston at Berklee College of Music. And then I did a master's degree in Brussels with an exchange program with Paris.
Wow.
So Porto, Barcelona, Boston, Brussels, and Paris. Those were the places where I studied music. And then after the master's degree, I felt I'm done with studying. I just want to do music and just follow my career. So that was it.
Do you have persons of reference in the teachers you had, or?
Yeah, totally. One of the most important ones was Faye Klassen from Holland. She was my teacher in Portugal when I was doing the jazz degree, and she was amazing. She was my main jazz teacher, and she helped me a lot with everything related to vocal technique and also phrasing, improvisation, harmony. She was a very complete teacher. Interpretation, really just expressing myself from a very deep place. So that was amazing. And then at Berklee, I studied with Bob Stoloff, and it was amazing because it was 2 semesters of, like this really scat singing, getting deeply into that, and then really developing even more into like a harmonic ear, being able to sight read harmonies, just to look at a chart without listening to it and being able to improvise in it. He was very, very tough in a good way, so I needed to practice a lot to be able to just keep up with it, what he was demanding from me. So that was amazing. And then David Links in Brussels, that was also great because he also helped me a lot with rhythmical stuff, and also a lot with dynamics, how to just, instead of just singing always with full voice, how to just really like contain the emotion and then release it, how to get out of your automatic way of singing. And that was amazing too. But that was only 1 year, but it was like an intense year. I would say those were like the most important ones. And then outside of the jazz studies, I also studied with Rhiannon. She's an improvisation teacher. And I started studying with her 16 years ago. So, and that was basically improvisation from another point of view. So not from chord progressions or from jazz standards. It was mostly creating the music in the moment. How do you just look at someone in the eyes and start a composition and find an ending, and mostly based in patterns and loops. And so just, so that opened up a completely different way of seeing improvisation, which now I teach in my workshops. So she has been a very, very important teacher for me too.
Great.
Yeah.
And do you think all those encounters is a kind of way of a kind of how do you say it, influence of the singer you are today?
Yes, completely, because each one of them showed me different ways of doing music, and they invited me to explore really different ways of using my voice. So from Bobstyle, I got a lot of this, and also from fake lesson, a lot of these more swing, bebop, scat singing sounds. But then with Rhiannon, suddenly I'm improvising with completely different sounds. Hello, yo, you know, it's just, that's not scat and anymore. And they definitely encouraged me to explore many, many ways of singing, and that's part of my sound today, because I just go and pick up all of these tools and I just use them to express myself. So definitely they influenced me a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were talking about your workshops. So do you teach a lot? What is the importance for you of teaching and of transmission?
Yeah. So I'm teaching mostly vocal improvisation with that same kind of idea of how to compose music immediately, instantly with other people, vocal, basically a cappella music. And I think that what that work just brought into my life was a feeling of complete freedom, that actually you can just really be very authentic and connect from where you are, accept yourself in a very deep way, and then connect with the other and also accept the other as the other person is. And that's basically freedom. It's not, there are not so many rules in a way. You cannot do this, you cannot sing those notes, that's a wrong note, or you cannot use your voice in that way. No, in this work you can do whatever it comes out, and you accept it and you surrender to the moment and you surrender to what's going on. And so because that was so important for me, to be able to open up myself, to connect with the audience more, to accept myself the way I am. It was such a deep work that I felt that I wanted to share that with other people. Felt, how can I just keep this for myself if it was so important for me to just, if it transformed me, then I want to help also to transform other people with that work. And so it's been already several years that I'm doing workshops and also retreats where I invite people to get into this unknown world of
I know what you are talking about.
right? Yeah, and it's wonderful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It just really, it just opens up all of these doors, and I think that when you work on that way of connecting to music, to yourself and to others, then it really helps you also when you're performing, when you're doing songs which have structures and arrangements, but it just kind of encourages you to be free, to be more free, even when you have very rigid or strict structures. You can still be free and connect to the audience, really, really connect to them. So I really recommend it completely. Yeah.
So does it mean that that's the only thing, the only way of teaching for you, or do you also teach sometimes some elements of the jazz tradition, or not at all?
I do sometimes. I actually like it a lot because I studied that so much that, but I don't teach in a school, or because I travel so much and I like to keep my schedule open, so I don't really have like a fixed job somewhere, but I teach private lessons. And if I have someone wanting to learn how to work on harmonic ear training and chord progressions, I love that so much that I'm really happy to share that too. And also in my workshops and retreats, sometimes we also work on skills building. So we might work on some chord progressions or phrasing, or so I try to integrate that into my teaching too, because that gives you a lot of tools to be able to then improvise freely. What I don't do so much is teach vocal technique. For example, I teach a little bit, but I'm not a specialist. So I might teach it once in a while, like kind of integrated in a workshop or a class, but it's not what I focused so much. And yeah, but besides that, I'm happy to teach and help people in different areas, not only improvisation, definitely. And jazz too, of course. I mean, I did it for so many years that if I get a jazz tender, I'm like, okay, let's work on this. You know, I still have this thing of like really loving to work on chord progressions and all of that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it doesn't go away, right? It just stays. That excitement, right? That excitement of, okay, what exercise can we do here to hear the guide tone lines or the arpeggios or whatever, yeah. Or like developing a motif and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your influences. Do you have some names of instrumentalists or singers, except the one with whom you've been learning? Yes.
Yeah.
That are really like images for you.
Yeah. Yeah. One is Chet Baker. I think he's been one of my main influences in jazz, as an instrumentalist and also as a singer, because he combines both. So, and I studied, I think, almost all of his solos. The ones I heard, I just learned them. So he was a big influence, and I learned a lot of his syllables, the way he improvises, the phrasing, the articulation. And then Ella Fitzgerald was probably the main singer I studied also. It was the first jazz singer that I heard. So of course that had a lot of impact, because I thought, well, this is amazing, I love this, I want to learn it. So Ella, definitely. And then Amália Rodrigues, she was a fado singer. And although I didn't listen so much to her, in the beginning, when I was a teenager, I didn't even like so much because it was traditional music and I didn't feel so connected. But at some point I did started learning and listening to that music, and that completely influenced my way of singing. That just kind of naturally, it started to come out, all of these ornamentations that she and many other traditional singers were using in their way of singing. So I think those three would be the main ones. Anita O'Day was also a singer that I listened to a lot, and I learned a lot from her. And Bobby McFerrin, yeah, definitely Bobby. Also because Bobby uses his voice in so many different ways that it's just so inspiring to listen to him and to pick up like inspiration. I would say those have been my main influences.
Do you create a link between all those musicians?
Interesting question. Well, one would probably be like all of them were people who were mastering their instruments in a way, you know, who no matter if they were studying in university or not, because not at all actually, probably from all of those, maybe none of them studied in a conservatory, right? Maybe Bob McFerrin studied in a university at some point, but they just really explored their instruments in a very deep way, and they were really mastering what they were doing. That's definitely one thing. And I always try to think that way too. Okay, I'm a singer, so I'm just gonna do all I can with my voice and really study as much as I can to be a good singer and a good jazz singer, a good improviser. And then also the expression part, you know, like the way they were so expressive with their instruments, you know, really connecting, also in an emotional way. If I listen to Chet Baker, it's touching for me. Amália Rodrigues, she sings with all her body and soul, and just comes from, I don't know. I don't even know from what place it comes, but you just feel it in your whole body when you listen to her. Yeah, I guess that the ability to express and connect and transmit feelings and inspire you. I guess those two things.
Okay. You were talking about fado.
Yeah.
So do you think you are really mainly influenced by the music of your country?
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, I definitely have an influence. I don't think it's not really like a musical influence in a way of melody or rhythm. Not so much. Maybe melody. Rhythm definitely not, because the rhythm in fado music is very simple, actually. It's not like in some countries that you listen to the rhythmical part. In Brazil, the rhythmical part is so complex and so advanced. In Portuguese music, that's not so, at least in fado music, that's not so common. The harmonic progressions are also very simple. So I don't think I use so much of that in my music. I think it's really mostly the vocal technique and maybe definitely the mood. I have a lot of songs, or I sing a lot of songs which are melancholic, and some of them are dramatic, and that comes from the music from my country. Definitely, there's a lot of drama in fado. So it's not so much like musically, it's more like the mood and yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Do you think you are also influenced by other kind or styles of music?
Yeah, well, Brazilian music definitely, because although in fado, when I sing fado or I sing songs that are a little bit in that mood, usually the voice is big and dramatic and the technique is very special, very, you know, whatever that means. But with the Brazilian singers that I heard, it's really not like that. Many times the voice is soft, and the technique is very different. So that's also very. I got a lot. I got a lot from that too, and from jazz, obviously. But I really love to listen to music from many different countries. I don't know. I like African singers, and I just try to imitate their sound. And of course it just comes out also in my music. Actually, I have a song in my new album. The song is called Lunga, which is the title of the album too, and it has an African rhythm there that I just don't know how it showed up there, but it is there, and there's a little bit of African sounds in the song, and so whatever I just hear and inspires me, I end up many times using in my music. So very open in that way.
I know you have been living in so many different parts of the world,
Yes.
like all over the places.
Yeah.
And do you think you are also influenced by those different cities or places where you've been living?
Yes, definitely. I mean, living in another country or another city, it just kind of makes you open up new doors constantly and open up your head, because you're constantly seeing other ways of living, and that influences your music too, other ways of doing music. And so definitely. And also because when I'm living in other countries, I end up listening to the music from that country, so that just gets into my system in a way. And yeah, it's like not a very conscious thing, but it definitely impacts my music for sure.
And you were also living in New York, for example. Do you think that the rhythm of the different cities has an impact or had an impact on your music?
Yeah, I think so. Although sometimes it's not like, for example, New York is a very hyperactive city and very stressful in a way. It can be very stressful. But I wrote songs which are not stressful at all, and that maybe if you listen to them, you don't see New York at all. Mm. I think although the city might affect you, then in the end, what's most important is your state of mind when you're writing that song. You know, you might be in the middle of a field, you know, or the middle of trees, and there's this super like agitated song that comes out, you know. I think it does affect you, but in the end, sometimes not, because it just really depends on the style of life or that you have in that place, or how you feel in that specific moment. I'd say so.
Mm. And do you think you are also influenced by other artistic disciplines?
Yes, I think so. Although I don't do much of other, like for example, what painting or
painting, poems, literature.
I would say more literature. Actually, painting I don't really paint. I love it, but I don't.
Well,
don't
the question
really...
is not about what you would do, but about looking or reading or going to the museum or
museums or anything.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely. Yeah. I mean, if I see a painting that inspires me, probably somehow I will want to transform that into music, you know? I think so, definitely. And literature too. Actually, many of my songs are inspired by stories, or that I imagine in my head, or that I read somewhere. And also I really like to write music for poems. So that's a very direct connection. Sometimes I probably have 10 songs which are poems that I put music into. And that's the easiest way for me to compose, actually. Some of probably the fastest songs I wrote were with poems, and suddenly I just wanna make them songs. And so definitely literature, it's very inspiring.
I've seen you, I had a chance to see you many times on stage, and you are really a storyteller. So can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of words when you sing, or when you compose, or when you write music?
Yeah, the words are very important, but more than the words, it's the story that's behind each song that I write. Because, for example, that song that I was talking about, it's called Lunga. It has an invented language, so it doesn't really, the words don't mean anything. Although people listen to it and they think it's a language, and they ask, what language is this? Because it sounds like a language. It's not like the typical scat or vocalese kind of sounds. It's really, it sounds like a language, but it's not. But what I feel very inspired to share with the audience is mostly what made me write that song. What happened when I wrote that song? How did I feel, and why did I want to invent a language in that moment? And And then if I'm singing something which has real words, many times I just translate a part of the poem or the lyrics. But most of all, I share why I wrote it, why those lyrics or that poem are important to me. And that's why probably you say I'm a storyteller, because I just feel that that's a very important part of my concerts. It's to share the stories behind the songs. Yeah.
What is for you the importance of the melody in the music you play?
It's very, very important because I'm very melodical. So even though rhythm is very important and melody is just, I don't know, it's like a journey, and I just love a good melody. I think that all the songs I choose to sing, whether they're mine or from other people, I need to connect with the melody. Otherwise it's very hard for me to, well, I also need to connect with the lyrics, obviously, but just the melody, it's just, I don't know. I love beautiful melodies. So it just does. Actually, many songs that I wrote, I just started with a melody. It happened actually that I had a complete song that has just a melody and there's no harmony, and then I'm, okay, now I need to find out what's the harmony that is there, or to have someone doing an arrangement and kind of like deciding what chords are going to be there. So the melody is my main focus usually. Sometimes too much, because it's also nice to get everything together and compose a song where you have the harmony and the melody just kind of happening together. But yeah, I choose melody. It's my favorite.
And do you like to stay close to what was written, or you really love to interpret those melodies?
Yeah, I completely change them a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of freedom for interpretation. Although usually the first time I sing a melody, it doesn't really matter if it's mine or if it's from another person, another composer. I really like to sing it very close to what it is. I might phrase a little bit or change the rhythm, mostly change the rhythm and maybe one note, but I'm very faithful for the melody, especially the first time I sing it. And then if I sing it again, I might do a little bit like in jazz, which is very common. You sing the melody closer to the original and then from there you just go somewhere else. So I have a lot of respect for the melodies. That's something I learned a lot from Fake Lesson, the teacher I was telling you about before, because many times she made me sing the melodies of jazz standards or whatever song I was singing the exact same way as it was written and really be expressive without making any variations, which was really hard, but I learned a lot from it. Because many times you start changing everything, right? And then suddenly it's not a variation anymore. You're just really completely changing that melody and also singing it again and again with variations. So I really learned that from her, and I try to just really respect the composer, especially in very specific like melodic things which are there that the composer wrote and you're changing them. Oof, that's a delicate thing, I think. So I just try to keep, especially one time, and then anything can happen. Yeah.
I know you sing mainly in Portuguese. Is it a specific choice to sing only in Portuguese? Because I know the most common language is English usually. Yeah. So can you explain a little bit more why you choose for Portuguese, for your native language?
Actually, in the first years of my career, I was singing mostly in English. Also because I was coming from the jazz singing world and I was singing mostly standards. Mm-hmm. And then I started doing concerts outside of Portugal, and I started having this request from the audience of singing, oh, why don't you sing a Portuguese fado? And I didn't really, I was not so connected to fado at the time. I just wanted to sing jazz. But I thought, okay, maybe it's interesting to add one tune in Portuguese to my repertoire and sharing where I come from. And that started being the strongest moment of the concerts. People would react like, what is this? And I was singing a fado, only one. And but yeah, that made people cry, that made people would just clap more in that song. I thought, okay, well, there's something happening over here. And I started slowly adding one more tune in Portuguese. I started searching, okay, besides fado, what could I sing in Portuguese? And then I started writing my own music. And just kind of naturally, it just came out in Portuguese. I think I wrote one song in English or two. And then that was it. And it was also, it was a lot because of the reaction of the audience. Because many people started telling me, it's great when you sing in English, but there's something special when you sing in your language. And I also started feeling that. I just felt that my voice would come out in a different way. And yeah, and my own music, somehow it just became very natural for me to express myself in that way. Because of course I have more vocabulary. It's my own language, my own words. And it came to a point that sometimes I don't even sing one song in English. It's kind of funny. In the new album, I have one in English.
Yes.
That I like. Thank you. But it was a poem. So I really loved the poem and I thought I want to write music to it. And it doesn't really matter if it's in English or not. And people like that song a lot in the concerts too. But nowadays, I think it would be very strange for me to do a whole concert in English. It just wouldn't feel like it's my most authentic expression. And I had a lot of doubts about that in the beginning. And sometimes I still wonder, I'm singing in a language that most of the people, they don't understand, because I mostly do concerts outside of Portugal. And the comments are always, I don't understand the words, but I really feel what you're singing. So people even tell me, please don't sing in English, sing in your own language. It doesn't matter if we understand it or not, which is kind of surprising. So, and also that's why it's so important that I tell the stories, because otherwise maybe they would just, of course, they could still enjoy. But when I tell the story, they make their own idea of the song. And then they don't get the words, but they kind of feel what I'm talking about. Yeah. So it's great because I'm just bringing my language in an accent which is not very common, because it's much more common to hear the Brazilian accent. There's many more Brazilians than Portuguese, and so although Portuguese music is starting to get more and more known, the Portuguese accent in the kind of music that I do is not really very common. So it is risky, but the feedback of the audience has been so good that I think that there's no way back to singing in other... And I sing also a lot in Spanish. I feel very connected to Spanish too. So Spanish feels almost like a native language to me right now, because I speak so much Spanish. I speak Spanish every day. So
because you live in Bogota.
Because I'm living in Colombia right now, and because my partner is from Colombia. So it has been many years of speaking Spanish every day. And so Spanish is more and more common in my music now. But Portuguese is my language, it's my home, it's my roots, and so
maybe slowly you will go more and more into Spanish.
Probably it will become more common, because it's becoming also a part of me in a way. Yeah. But Portuguese, it will always be my language. I mean, it's just very strong, the place where we're coming from. And also the audience usually tells me that they really appreciate the sounds of Portuguese, which is really nice. They say, oh, it's the most beautiful language for... I'm like, really? Wow, okay, that's great to hear. You know, when I'm wondering, is it weird that they don't get the words? And then I let go of that, and it's great. Bringing my language to other places, that's really a wonderful thing, I think.
What is the song you prefer to sing on stage?
That's interesting because it changes constantly.
Of course.
Right? Because I think there are songs that I really love to sing, and then I get tired very easily of the songs. I need to give them a break, and then I go back and I sing them again. Now there is one which I might start to get a little tired because I've been singing it in every concert since the day I wrote it, but I still enjoy it very much, like vocally and the story and the arrangement, which is a song that is part of my album. It's called Flor Silvestre, and it has a poem from my mother, so that's a very, very special one. And the melody is just very nice to sing, and also the message is really beautiful. The poem is very beautiful from my mother, and everybody connects a lot to that song and to the simplicity of the melody, and also of the message, which basically talks about a wildflower, like a flower that shares how wonderful it is to live in nature. And that says that the secret for happiness is just listening with your heart and live in simplicity. And it's so simple, and everybody connects so much to that idea, so it's a song that I love to sing, definitely. But that changes. So
it will change again and again.
Again and again. Every concert, like, I don't feel like singing this night. I feel like I change the set list on the spot many times. Because I say, no, I don't feel this right now. So, and then the band is like, oh. They already know. I'm like, okay, we're going to this one. Okay. So, yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about improvisation, because I know that's so important for you?
Yes.
I know you are teaching a lot about improvisation, but when you are on stage, how do you make it happen?
Well, improvisation on stage happens in different moments. Of course, when I'm soloing, when I have like a solo, kind of a typical solo in a chord progression, it happens sometimes on beginnings of the songs, that somehow the arrangement is very defined, but in the beginning there is an open thing, so that happens a lot too. And in endings, many times the endings are open. Sometimes the endings are very clear, and there's a specific rhythmical melodic thing that happens and we know it's the ending, but sometimes there's kind of a vamp where we stay and I am leading the ending. So I'm leading the band like towards an ending. And I also do a lot of inviting the audience to sing with me more and more, because I do a lot of circle singing. So many times there's moments where I'm improvising, I'm just doing whatever melody comes out, and I feel, okay, this could be a nice melody to invite the audience to sing. And then I give them parts and they just keep singing. So that happens a lot, spontaneously, and also there are songs where I specifically know that I will invite the audience to sing, that it's part of the arrangement to actually give different parts to the audience and make them sing. And that's usually really beautiful, and it's really improvised in the moment. I don't have the parts I don't practice those parts. I just get there and I just invite them to sing, and it's very powerful. And they know it's improvised, they feel that, so it just creates a really beautiful thing there. I think those are the main moments. Yeah, and sometimes in melodies too. if I'm interpreting a melody and I just feel like taking it somewhere, I'll just do it. Definitely never sing a song the same way twice. I think none of us does, right? Like completely the same. No, we don't. We don't.
Right.
There's always space for that.
And when you work on improvisation, if you work on it, do you have a process of working, or do you work mainly in an intuitive way? Or?
Nowadays, I don't practice improvisation so much. I mostly practice when I'm teaching, because that's also a great way of practicing. Because I'm coming up with things in the spot, but nowadays, well, there was a time of my life that I really practiced improvisation a lot in a very obsessive way. I couldn't wait to get into a practice room and work on things. Nowadays, I don't really do that so much unless I have something specific that I need to work on. If I'm soloing on a tune and I don't know the chord progression so well, I'll just get in on a piano and I'll just practice really hearing that harmony, singing the roots and guide tone lines and arpeggios and all of that. And then if it's vocal, like this kind of improvisation that I teach, which is more based in loops, sometimes I practice with an app on my phone, and I just practice like patterns that I keep layering and just experimenting with those. And I would love to start working with a loop station, but I've been saying this for years and I didn't do it yet, so I'm still, yeah.
It must be a sign.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a sign that I should just do it right away, or if it's not my thing. I don't know. But I think it's a very useful tool to practice just all of these kind of layers of patterns.
You were talking a lot about your relationship to melody. What would be your relationship to harmony?
Harmony is also a favorite. Yeah, I mean, I just love harmonies, and I love complex harmonies. I have to say, there's something that really connects me when I hear this kind of, I wouldn't say weird harmonies, because that's so relative. What is a weird harmony? I don't connect so much to like contemporary, very dissonant harmonies. I find it interesting, but it's not what just warms my heart but that's why I say that the harmonies I borrow from jazz, because I do love harmonies that just move around. And I love like the extensions of the chords. I love sevenths and nines, and I really love all of that, all of those sounds which are not showing up in pop music, for example, usually. So I like to hear like a little complexity in harmonies. And I also love, when I'm doing more of this improvisation work in my workshops, I love the vocal harmonies that are created and that are not many times a little dissonant and not so obvious. But I love the movement of harmonies, definitely. It's just something that really, really connects me.
Okay. When you improvise, are you aware of the sounds, of the syllables that you use?
I guess I'm aware, but I just let it come out in the way I like, depending on how that specific song or that specific, could be a circle song, could be just loops. I just let it out, because depending on the style of what I'm singing, my syllables change and in a very natural way. I guess I probably have my own typical sounds when I improvise, I guess. But I don't know, if I'm singing a song that has more of an African vibe, I might start, and if I'm singing more of a jazzy tune, then this is gonna come out naturally because I think the syllables are there to serve the music. So I am very aware, or I try to be very, very aware of what the song needs, you know. So if I start using typical scat syllables in a song which sounds more, I don't know, Brazilian, you know, if I start doing it just might not work. So I try to really feel the mood of the song and to let my sounds express that in a natural way.
And what is your relationship to rhythm?
Of course I love rhythm too. Yeah, I mean I love rhythm.
Your music is definitely so rhythmic also.
I guess so, yeah. Sometimes I feel that it's not so rhythmical because I love this like sometimes slow and melancholic tunes, but rhythm is rhythm, and I also feel, of course, very connected to that, especially when I'm singing with my band, which they're amazing, and rhythmically they're so, they're so skilled, and I think that gives just such a nice thing in a concert to have all of these rhythms coming up and showing up, and rhythm is the base of everything. If rhythm is not there, it's really tough. Although I also love to sing like things without a tempo, without a pulse. I also love that. But then after that I need rhythm. so yeah, it's probably between melody, harmony and rhythm is probably the one that I worked less. Because in melody and harmony I was really, really like diving deep into it. So I still would love to explore more of like, for example, different metrics. I don't know if you did, you know, like a 7 or 11 or, you know, like all of, I still feel that there is more to explore there in rhythm. So I'll probably start working more on that, getting obsessed with that at some point soon.
Do you have a process when you compose? You were talking about the poems and everything.
Yeah. I don't have I don't have one way of doing it, and it changes a lot. It already happened that I composed everything separately. Like, for example, I write the melody the way like, for example, I was telling before, I write a melody and then I put chords into it. That happened many times, and now recently I've been experimenting more with doing everything at the same time, because I want to see what happens when I do that. And that's not my tendency. My tendency, because I'm so melodic, my tendency is to focus on melody and then the rest we'll see. But now I'm exploring more what happens if I write the lyrics, the melody and the harmony, everything at the same time. And that many times I feel that, I mean, there's no rules, and any way can happen, in my opinion. A lot of people say, no, you must do. I don't believe in that. I really don't. But I have to say that when you do everything together, there's something very organic about it, that it's very powerful too. So the last songs that I wrote were written like that, almost like just improvising with, for example, now I'm working a lot with the ukulele. So improvising with the ukulele and let it come out, at least a good part of the composition, that it just comes out all at the same time. And it's also integrating what I do in improvisation, integrating that into my composition world, which is letting it out. And sometimes I'm like, oh, this is interesting. These lyrics are a little surrealistic, and that's interesting. They're going into different ways and different places that I usually don't go. So I'm enjoying that process too. Usually for me, the lyrics are the most complicated part, So it's very common that I write a melody and then I write lyrics to it. Because the melody comes out so easily, and the lyrics, I'm much more perfectionist with the lyrics, and does it make sense, or is it cliche? There's a lot more of like my mind gets into the process much more with the lyrics than with everything else. That's why now I'm trying to compose everything together, and letting just my mind quiet and just see what comes out if I don't control, almost as if it would be an improvisation, and then I work around it. So I'll see what happens with the next compositions. Maybe my next album will be all songs that I composed everything together. That would be an interesting project. Yeah.
You have the idea for your next album?
Yes. And I already have like 4 or 5 songs. So
okay.
That would be interesting. Yeah. Like really an album where the process is that of just everything together and working around that, instead of melody, putting lyrics into it, putting harmony into it.
And since many years you form a musical pair with Juan Ospina. And do you also sometimes compose together?
Yes, we wrote, especially on this last album. No, actually, we recorded 3 albums together of my music, and I think in the 3 albums we have songs that we wrote together, but it was not the way I was telling you of writing everything together. It was songs that I start in a way, and I really like the idea or the musical motif, but then I don't know where else to take it, and he's like a genius in harmony, so he's just in getting one idea and taking it far away, and so I watched him just really compose a song that starts with my idea, and I don't know, 10 minutes. It's like, oh wow, okay, because he's really good at developing one idea harmonically, rhythmically, and melodically, and so he just takes it somewhere far away where I would not be able to take it. My compositions are simpler in a way, and his musical world is much more complex in a way that he hears things when he composes that I usually don't. So I feel that it's a very interesting complement to each other, because I have the more lyrical side, melodical, and suddenly puts like a harmonic progression that makes the melody fly. Actually, there is one song that it's literally called Fly.
Okay.
That I had the main idea, and he just took it, and then I wrote lyrics to it. So yeah, we have, I think, and this album, the new album, we have, I think, 5 songs that we wrote together. Yeah. And it completely changes what it was there, while keeping the same mood and vibe, which was already there. So it's great.
Do you play often together? I mean,
yeah,
not on stage, just practicing or just for the pleasure?
Not so much, actually, because both of us have, besides playing together, both of us, we have our projects, and I know, and we do it so much on stage, on tours, or so it's more when we have a concert, and then we practice, but we don't really practice much, actually, I have to say. No, we focus a lot more on the performance, and many songs that we do have a lot of improvisation in it, and I love that. I really enjoy just we even do like a cappella arrangements, which are not arrangements, they're improvised in the moment. So we focus more on stage.
I know that you love to be on stage. Well, and also when we see you on stage, it's so obvious that you love to be on stage. Would you have one anecdote about you on stage, something special that happened, or?
Let me think.
A souvenir.
Something strange or something
don't know.
uncomfortable. I don't know, so many things happen while you're on stage. Once I was singing in Luxembourg and there was a fight on stage. This is
No.
really, this happened. It was a festival in Luxembourg. It was probably one of my first tours. So it was many, many years ago. It was a very weird festival. A lot of people drinking and like a blues festival or something like that. Jazz and blues.
That must be the reason. No,
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
joking.
know. Yeah, I don't know. It was a kind of a funny festival. And then they started a fight like on in the audience, and then one of them, because he wanted to run away from the other person, he found a way to get on stage and stay there because he thought that he was safe there. And of course everybody stopped singing and playing because suddenly there's a guy there hiding from somewhere. And the piano player, remember him, Pascal Mohi, is from Belgium.
Yes.
He's so relaxed and easygoing. He
Yes.
kept playing. He just kept playing. And the other guy wanted to come on stage to fight with him, and we were all like this, and he just kept playing. I think that was the most surrealistic thing that happened to me. And especially because I was just starting, so I was like, what is this? Is this possible? But I had all kinds of situations of, I don't know, of losing my voice in the middle of stage because I was with a completely sick. I once did a concert and I had 39 degrees of temperature.
Oh.
Yeah, like a really, really bad cold. There's something that happens, I think, and probably you connect to this in a lot of performers, when I'm on stage, of you just find a way to deal with every situation which is there, because there's like this focus and this delivery to the audience, and you just find a way.
Yeah.
You might have a cold, you might be completely exhausted, I don't know, you might be disconnected, and then you get there and everything just aligns, and you just do what you gotta do. And that's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm even tired. I'm like, I would prefer to go to the movies instead of singing. I mean, that happened. I remember that. Of course, when you do it a lot, and that takes away a little bit of this fairy tale thing of, going on stage, it's always wonderful. It is always wonderful, but it can also be exhausting because you have to give a lot, but in the end, it's always wonderful. Because I think it's just so powerful. When you get on stage, there's something so powerful happening that it's always a great experience. No matter what you have to deal with, like a fight on stage.
And what would be the most beautiful experience you had on stage? Do you have that idea in mind?
I can think of many performances where there is this amazing flow and connection. One was a very special one, was a concert that I did now in January, the CD release of our new album in New York. That was a very special one for some reason. There was this really, the band was super tight. We had amazing guests, and I made the audience sing a lot. Specifically, there were a lot of singers in the audience, and that was magical. And I remember one concert that I did in duo with Juan Andrés Ospina, that was in Venezuela. It was right before the situation started getting really, really serious politically there, but it was already very complicated. And I remember that it was really magical because already the situation was hard and there were not so many concerts happening and very unsafe to be in the streets. And I felt this appreciation of the audience, which was really, really special. And in the end, I remember just hugging the people in the audience. Everybody would come and say hi, and I was just hugging everybody, people that I did not know. I do that a lot, but that specific concert was, people would just come with their eyes, shining and saying, "You just gave us the biggest gift ever." And I remember that was very you know, when you feel that the audience is really, really appreciating what you're doing and it's important for their lives and for their souls. That happens a lot, but that one was a very powerful one.
Thank you to share it.
Mm.
What is your relationship with your instrument?
Interesting. Well, I love my instrument. Sometimes I hate it too. No, I love my instrument. Sometimes I get easily tired with my voice, so that's why I hate it sometimes. I hate it that is not that I hate it. I need to take care of it a lot, and that's a wonderful thing. But sometimes when you feel like singing the whole time and speaking the whole time and teaching and doing things and traveling, and so sometimes I wish it would be more resistant, so that I could just sing 10 hours a day and teach. And but I love it. I really love my voice in a way that I feel that it just allows me to express whatever I want to with it. And even when I can't, because I'm more tired and my voice is less flexible and the high notes are not so much there, I find a way to express myself with more air or less air, with more high notes or less high notes. There's always a way to express myself, because it's coming from inside. It's coming from your feelings and emotions. So I don't know, if you think of Billie Holiday, who had such a small register, she was one of the most expressive singers that I've ever heard. So I think in the end, it's just if I would sing classical music, it would probably be harder, because the technique is so like strict in a way, right? You need to sing over an orchestra. You need to really use your voice in a very, very specific way. And the fact that I do music which is so open and free, I can use my voice the way I want to. And there's always a ways to express yourself with your voice, no matter how you use it. So yeah, I love my voice.
Yeah. Do you feel a change in your voice with time, with age?
Oh yeah, completely. Like, I don't know, maybe 1 year ago or 2 years ago, I don't remember, I was listening to a CD that it was a live recording in, I think, 2002, so 17 years ago. It was my first important concert, and I cannot recognize my voice. I really cannot believe it's me singing. It's like I have this thin, kind of childish voice, and I don't know, like, I think over these years, it's deeper, it's darker when it needs to be. It's not so childish anymore, because I've been experiencing all these things in my life, and so if I'm singing a painful song, I'm gonna put that pain into my voice. And before, it was lighter, it was just thinner, it had less experience in there. So it's definitely changing constantly. And I feel that also the fact that I do so much improvisation, I keep discovering new ways of using my voice, new sounds, and I love that. That depending on the song that I'm singing, I can suddenly just explore my voice in a different way, with a new sound. So yeah, I don't know how it's gonna keep developing, but for sure it will.
And do you think that with the voice we can do things that instruments cannot do?
Oh yeah. I mean, each instrument has its own possibilities, but the human voice is just it's just really powerful. It's inside here. It's like it's part of our body. It's not an extension of our body. It's inside our throat, which is the same place where we breathe. and I don't know. I think there's something really, just powerful is the word that keeps coming out, keeps popping up in my head. It just Well, first we can use words, which is really powerful. Nobody else can. And then we have all these options of sounds of our voice that, and each voice is completely different from the other one, right? So yeah, I think we have a very special gift, very special instrument with us.
Definitely.
We agree.
And do you have a vocal hygiene?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I try to warm up before singing, although I don't do it always. But I want to do that more and more. I try not to sing too many hours in one day, and not to speak too much, because speaking is also tiring. If you're speaking the whole day and then you have a concert in the evening, I try to keep it, to control it in a way. I try to sleep well, and a lot. Maybe it's 8 hours, but it would probably be very hard for me to just sleep 4 hours constantly, or 4 or 5 hours, and just keep singing in a healthy way. For me, it's very important to sleep. Drink a lot of water. Sometimes if I'm more tired, I do this kind of inhaling steam, which helps me a lot. But besides that, I'm pretty easygoing with it. With food or with I don't know. It's fine if I drink a glass of wine, or I don't feel very sensitive in that way. It's mostly like being careful of not overusing my voice, especially if I'm on tour and I'm traveling every day and taking an airplane. So I really try to just hydrate myself a lot and just keep like the time of singing or speaking using my voice more reduced, so that then I have a lot of possibilities for the concerts.
And now something totally different. What place do you think you have, or do you feel you have, as a singer or as a woman, in a world of instrumentalists that are mainly men?
It's interesting because I think, a lot of people have been talking a lot about that, and I've never really felt a limitation in that. But I have to say, I didn't really think much about that. So it hasn't been a thing in my life. Maybe I would feel that more if I would be, I don't know, directing an orchestra, or if I would be a producer. I have friends who feel that, like a woman who's producing and feels a little bit less opportunities, but I've never really felt that. Also because although I'm in the middle of jazz and I mostly perform in jazz places, I also do a lot of performances that are not related to jazz, and they come to listen to me. It doesn't really matter if I'm a man or a woman. So I've never really felt that as a limitation. Although I'm aware that that's probably like something that happens, and I support a lot of friends who are women who are in that struggle. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do you feel musically close to other singers in Europe?
Yes, in general, yeah.
Well, jazz or not jazz, because you are in several kind of music.
Yeah, I feel connected to a lot of singers from Portugal, from Spain, from Belgium, from France. I never really analyzed if I like more from one continent or more than another, but I can immediately think of a lot of singers that I really like in...
Okay, go ahead. A few names.
Sure. I like Barbara. I don't know if you know her. I love your voice, by the way.
Thank you.
So there you go. You have one already. In Portugal, I love a fado singer called Carminho. She's a very special fado singer because I think she took it into a more modern way of doing it. I like Cyril Aimé, she's French, although she lives in the United States. Fake Lesson, I love her way of singing. David Lynx. Let me keep going. Rita Maria, she's a Portuguese singer, Portuguese jazz singer, who's amazing. If you don't know her, it's definitely worth it to check her out. She's an amazing jazz singer. Concha Huica, she's Spanish.
Okay.
Maria Pia Di Vito, Italian. And probably I'm forgetting singers that I love and that I will regret not having said their names, but so
I will add.
Yeah, right.
Add.
Yeah, but definitely I feel very connected to. There's so many amazing people in Europe, everywhere in the world. But Europe is a place where there's a lot of skilled singers, right? Yeah. Singers who really practice a lot and do an amazing job nowadays.
And do you feel that you are part of a special trend or movement in music?
That's interesting. I don't really know because I feel that what I'm doing is a little specific because it has these very specific influences, and I'm not really like I don't feel that I'm completely in a specific scene, you know, like there's a jazz scene in Portugal. I don't know if I'm really completely connected or integrated in that scene. Sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not, but I'm connecting a lot to the Latin community in a way, and to like a trend of independent musicians maybe who are finding ways to do music without having the need of a label or management, or you know, like people who are saying, okay, I'm doing my music and I'm finding my way to finance my albums. I think if I fit in a kind of group of people, that would definitely be my group of people. Independent musicians who are finding ways to just bring their music to other places without having the typical support from like the musical industry, who are finding their way with the musical industry, which has been changing completely the last years, like from one place to the other. So like the struggling musicians who are like fighting hard to bring their music to different places. Hopefully it will become less hard at some point. No, and it's not that hard actually, but it needs a lot of effort and work and hard work, definitely.
I also know that you do everything. Well, we are allowed to do this, but you travel so much and you organize really everything. So that's really...
and I'm having more and more help from other people recently, and I'm starting to think more, after so many years of doing everything on my own, I'm also starting to think more of having a team of people who are helping me. I have someone, for example, now since 2 years who helped me with all of the mailing list and newsletter, among other things. And I'm starting to have more help because I feel that it's too much. And then I get exhausted. So yeah, I think you can still be independent and find people who surround you and who will also get paid for doing their job, helping you to just keep bringing your music everywhere. So that's my plan now, really, to have a team of people who help me with tour management, with different areas of my crazy traveling life.
Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah, I need it. Yes, I know I need it, and it's the moment for that. But the great thing is that I learned so much from doing it on my own that I can actually help other people and tell them, okay, here's what you should do. So I can actually train other people who will also be learning and of course getting paid for their job. and I can train them to do the things that I was doing on my own, and that it's definitely too much for me to do all of that. Yeah,
I'm sure it will work.
it will.
Yes.
It has to. Yeah.
Thank you, Sophia. It was such a pleasure to have this chance to interview you.
Oh, thank you so much for your great questions.
Oh, thank you.
It's really a pleasure to talk to you, to a singer that I also admire a lot.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's really a
thank
pleasure.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sophia.
Kavoya soya dingoma, amina dera mulitsa. Leri veli maramona la kunge, amora doya luruma, ikora la yamudu ve.